Avast, ye scurvy dogs. My name be Strikeeth, and I'm here to review Assassin's Creed 4, Black Flag. There. Finally got all the pirate out of my system. So, here we are again with another game, and surprise, another Assassin's Creed. The first game in the series came out in 2007. Hard to believe it's already been 6 years, hasn't it? In that time, we've actually had 7 Assassin's Creed games, so this is hardly the 4th in the series. If you count all the iOS, handheld, and Facebook games, that number goes up to a staggering 15 games based on Assassin's Creed. It's pretty insane just how much Ubisoft has milked this cow over the years. So let's get into the review a bit, shall we? Being that this is their first open world Assassin's Creed game, let's start there. They advertised the hell out of the open world aspect and how you can sail anywhere in your ship with your crew singing shanties, and large-scale naval battles against the British with their scurvy pirates. Well, the question is, how much did they actually succeed in this? The answer is, they didn't. Is the game open world? Sure, but sailing gets repetitive and boring by about the 4th hour into the game. All I can say is, thank God there's a quick travel system. Now, hear me out before you go into the comments section and start raging in poorly constructed English. I like open world games, always have, but the fact remains that this game was basically a giant copy and paste fest. You see tons of treasure chests all over the place that become increasingly irrelevant as the game goes on. You don't really need them, and they usually don't give you enough treasure to warrant the actual experience of going out and finding them. Many of the islands look the same, and the soldiers that you fight are basically all the exact same guys, except with different colored outfits to represent their faction. On top of this, you often find yourself having to return to the same locations multiple times for story objectives, despite having this huge open world to explore. It gets redundant when you're back at the same city for the 3rd time to kill someone. Naval combat was something I found exciting in Assassin's Creed 3. Sure, it was heavily scripted and was a smaller part of the game, but it ultimately worked. Here, we have as much naval combat as we like, and it's just not interesting as a result, especially once you've upgraded your ship. By the end of the game, I could just tear through entire fleets with little to no difficulty. Man of war and 3 frigates? Not a problem, just mortar everything to death and getting close with the finishing blow. The only challenge that the naval combat offers is the artificial difficulty of having your ship gimped very severely at the beginning of the game so that you can't take much damage nor dish out much damage. This leads me into the combat. I'll say it plainly. If you played Assassin's Creed 1, then you've played pretty much every Assassin's Creed game in the series. Every time they release one of these games, there's all of this marketing hype about the new game engine, tons of animations, improved visuals, and so on and so forth. And these are mostly true. However, at its core, it's still the same game. You follow targets, assassinate people, and deal with crappy and relatively stupid AI. It's sort of improved over time, but the AI is still unforgivably stupid at times. There's times where I've killed enemies in succession, one right next to another without any of their buddies realizing that their friends were all dying around them. Another time, I actually killed the 2 soldiers that were escorting a target, and he actually continues to talk to them as if they're still there all the way until the game says that I can kill him. It's amazing that people continue to let Ubisoft get away with this sort of lazy programming. Because of the focus on sailing in this game, the rest of it does suffer. The assassination missions are uninspired, and a lot of artificial difficulty is added by forcing you to follow a target without being able to kill them until the game says that you can, or by going so far as to restrict the weapons that you can use. In regards to assassinations, I really feel that Assassin's Creed 1 did these the best. Sure, that game had its flaws, but assassinations were spot on. You were given a target, and you had to find a way to dispose of them in a predefined area usually filled with guards and other dangers. This added a lot of flexibility to how you could actually execute the assassination. You don't find that so much in later games in the series. Since then, we've gone away from that and it's become much more restricted and linear, which is more frustrating than fun. To me, this franchise could just be renamed to Artificial Difficulty the Game, and that would describe the direction that they've taken this series perfectly. And so, let's talk about the story. This time around, you're playing as a no-name, faceless character working at a company that receives its funding from Abstergo, and it's basically a front for memory mining to find artifacts that the Templars can use for increasing their power. This, in my opinion, is actually a step down from Desmond. Don't get me wrong, Desmond wasn't the most compelling character I've ever seen. When he was out of the Animus and not dead, oh minor spoilers by the way, he spent most of his time whining, pissing off his father and friends, or killing Lucy. Even so, I thought he was a decent character, and by the end of the series I was a little sad to see him go. Just a little. Though I still feel that the way they handled his death was complete bullshit. Fast forward to AC4, and we no longer have any attachment to the character. Hell, I don't even know what his name is. I think that they wanted to try and get away from having to develop another character out in the real world this time around. Some people may find it more immersive since they can be like, oh look, the game is making it so that I'm actually the person diving into the Animus. I'm so immersed right now. But really, nobody gives a shit about you or me. When I play a game, I don't want to be myself. I want to follow the story and the life of someone that's living in a world that's far more interesting than mine will ever be. Even at the end of the game, you still have no idea what you look like, or even what gender you are, let alone your name. Everything is just addressed to you. There's also conveniently no mirrors that show your reflection, at least as far as I've seen in the game. Maybe you're actually dead. You're a ghost. That's creepy. With all that being said, the real world segments were far more interesting than the Animus segments. You have so little time with all the actual pirates and other people in Edward's time that, on more than one occasion in the game, someone would come up to Edward and start talking like they were old friends while I'm just sitting there like, who in the bloody hell are you? Have I even seen you before? His story was nothing we haven't seen before. In fact, I really took offense with how in the beginning of the game, he literally goes from generic pirate number 346 to trained and competent assassin. There's no transition, training period, or anything. He literally just puts on the hidden blades and voila, he's a badass. That's an insult to every assassin ever. In the trailers for this game, they really pushed Blackbeard as being a major segment, but ultimately, aside from one really good scene he had, very little presence in the game, it was quickly forgotten. It was the same way with other pirates. Also, the Templars in this game just weren't scary or imposing. They were just kind of there, and the game says, hey, kill these guys at some point, and you do. The end. It seems like they're just going through the motions at this point. They put all their money in making a huge open world, but everything else from the combat to the story suffered as a result. Now, as I said, the segments that took place out of the Animus were pretty interesting. They were short snippets, a total of 5 parts, where you got to interact with the real world a bit, in modern times, much like other series. In this game, they introduced several new hacking minigames and include some additional audio clips from Subject 0, Subject 1, and Subject 17, aka Desmond Miles. These audio clips were the most interesting part of the game to me, hands down. Not only were they very well done, but they were all very interesting to listen to. I could easily just sit there for an hour or two just listening to the early days of the Animus project and their experiences with the various subjects. Subject 0 especially was very interesting. These audio clips were fun to listen to, very intriguing to see how they struggled with the early Animus project, and the end result was, well, expected, but still a bit surprising or disappointing depending on how you look at it. The hacking portion was a bit less fun. The hacking ranged from doing basic arithmetic, which I am terrible at, let me tell you. It was like 7 times 5 times 7 times 7. Oh, I'm already fucked. Then they had the spinning 3-dimensional spheres where you had to move your little glowing dot around until you got it into the right spot. Most of these weren't too bad, but I remember I spent like a half an hour on one where I just could not find the right spot, and that was very frustrating. But it was still more fun than the last one, which is Frogger, or basically Frogger. You have to move your dot from one side to the other, and there's little red lines that are moving back and forth that'll stop you and reset you back to the beginning. And, this one drove me nuts. I did not like it whatsoever. The rest were far better in comparison to the Frogger segments. This time around in the real world, they gave you a tablet which contained your mini-map on it and had all your various messages and archives that you could pull up. This wasn't a bad system, but I found it a little bit clunky. I kept wanting to jump, but the jump key brings out or puts away the tablet instead. I also found that you're pretty limited in the speed that you can move, which made navigating and exploring your offices rather slow. I understand that they didn't want you sprinting around the offices like a madman, but I hardly think that many people would complain if they allowed you to go just a bit faster. Since the segments outside of the animus were the most interesting, I'll avoid as many spoilers as I can there. I want you to enjoy the game on your own. I will say though that the twist at the end took me completely by surprise. I actually didn't expect what they did there, and I will give them props for that. That was well done. So, good job Ubisoft on the ending to the real world segments. That was much better than the actual animus segments. I know there's been a lot of negativity in this review, but we're past the point where I can forgive stupid shit like incredibly glitchy AI, repetitive missions, reused ideas, and so on. Even the side missions show no attempt to even innovate a little. They're the same old. But goddamn, if there are a ton of them, it's actually hard to ignore them. I have a very difficult time just skipping side missions, because they're literally everywhere. If you know me, you'll know that I'm not the kind of person that really enjoys side missions. If there's something that really appeals to me, like an outfit, or some incredibly badass weapon that I can't do without, or anything along those lines in general, I'll at least consider doing it. Well, there's a lot of treasure and hidden maps to find in this game, but it's so spread out, and there's so much of it for so little reward that I really just missed all of it and just stuck to the main story. You know, when you're like, oh, well, there's this badass outfit I can unlock, and then you see the requirements are like, well, find a few dozen of these things. You're like, oh, hell no, I'm not doing that shit. You do have things like diving under the water, hunting sharks and whales, which are basically just turret sections with harpoons, by the way, and so on. Those are different and new, but I found that diving underwater wasn't all that fun. Like everything else, it's very linear and limited, and you have to deal with hordes of man-eating sharks every time you go diving, because I guess Ubisoft thinks that giant man-eating sharks are all that's in the ocean. The music is actually top-notch though, as is usual for this series, so that's not a surprise, but you know, it's something I do appreciate. I really do quite enjoy many of the tracks in the game, and it really adds to my enjoyment when a tense moment has a really well done track playing in the background that gets me in the mood for stalking my prey. One thing I really do love is the sea shanties that you can find throughout the world. Basically, you chase down the shanties, and each one you find gives you a new music track that your ship crew will sing while you're out on the sea. My favorite is, without a doubt, Drunken Whaler. It's extremely catchy, the chorus is well done, and it brings back memories of the awesome Dishonored trailer with that haunting version of the song in the background. Look it up if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. Even if you never played the game, just that trailer is great. Another thing that I actually did like was that this time, instead of recruiting assassins that essentially just collect resources and money for you, and never really have any impact in the game after that, you now have the ability to capture ships and build a pirate fleet. Kinda cool. While you don't get to directly interact with your fleet, there's a minigame of sorts where you basically use your ships for trade, and can have ship battles along routes that the enemy inhabit. These are admittedly kind of fun, and on more than a few occasions, I found myself doing these even though they have no real effect in the game. This is something that I'll definitely give them props for here. Giving us more interaction is always a good thing. I do kind of miss being able to call assassins to help you out, but that wouldn't fit with Edward Kenway since he doesn't actually join the assassins and kind of does his own thing throughout the game, like a proper scurvy pirate. Oh, and let's talk about stability. There were multiple occasions where I had to restart the mission or the game client itself because the AI bugged the hell out. I even had one segment where the NPC I had to kill just kept repeating the same line over and over and over again, and walking back and forth in a straight line. I couldn't kill him because he wasn't going anywhere, and if I killed him out in the open, I instantly failed the mission. So I ended up having to redo the entire mission leading up to the assassination after I restarted the game client. Oh, and I also lost 6 hours of progress, because the game just decided not to save anymore. That's amazing, by the way, great feature. The save indicator was constantly spinning in the bottom of the screen, but it wasn't actually saving apparently. So when I restarted my game the next day to finish it off, I suddenly found myself back at memory segment 7 instead of segment 10, where I had been before. Naturally, since the game didn't save, Ubisoft's cloud sync bullshit didn't have anything to restore, so I was boned. I tried downloading some game saves, but of course they weren't compatible with my version of the game. The regular game saves that are out there for the PC DVD version or whatever aren't compatible with the version that you get through Ubisoft, like if you buy it through Green Man Gaming or whatever, which is what I did. Yeah, it's all like synced to your account. like the files don't match up. Can't use them. Since I did purchase the game at $60 and had no desire to replay all of those sections, I went ahead and downloaded the regular PC version online and used someone else's game save to get back to where I was and finish the game. That right there speaks volumes about this game. There's many games where I would be okay with going back to replay sections, you know, to redo something in a different way, but I just had no desire to go back and redo all of this. It was so time consuming and the story just didn't pull me in like it should, that I just had no desire to go back and redo it. I just didn't want to. So I put forth the effort to download a second copy of the game and use someone else's game save that already had that section I was on previously unlocked, just so I wouldn't have to replay it. That's telling you a lot right there. So anyway, this of course was a huge pain in the ass. I hope I never have to install 2 copies of the game again just to be able to finish it. Of course, you'll see that I have some obscene amounts of gold and other unlocked outfits in this video. And that stuff is all from the game save I downloaded. I didn't do hardly any of the side missions, I didn't unlock any of the bonus stuff that didn't already come with my game. You know, the DLC, I did buy some DLC and, you know, those things, but I didn't do any of the side missions to unlock bonus stuff. The guy in this game save already had tons of cash on his account, so necessarily I didn't feel like doing side quests anyway, and grinding out ship upgrades, which you will have to grind them out unless you go everywhere. This worked out perfectly for me in the end anyway. There's quite a few reports of similar issues with this game, so all I can say is don't rely on Ubisoft's cloud sync crap, and make copies of your game save frequently, because you just never know. This brings us to a head. This is a massive game. There's so much to talk about, and so much I could continue to talk about for hours even. I feel like there's still so much that I haven't talked about. But I feel like I've said my main points, and I'll end it here. Assassin's Creed 4 isn't a bad game, but it's not a great one either. It's not unique for this franchise. You're paying $60 for more of the same. Yes, there are changes and some unique aspects, but not nearly enough. The series has grown stale over time, and I'm not sure what they're going to do about it. Even as I'm putting together this review, I'm sure they've sold like 3 million copies of the game across the world and are cashing checks with big fat smiles on their faces. I know that I certainly won't make any kind of dent on their wallets with my limited viewership, but hopefully someone out there will take heed and not dump $60 on this game. And that's not even including the DLC and the $20 season pass, which every game has these days. I'm getting really sick and tired of season passes. It's become the norm, and it's just a way for them to get more money out of you. For the love of God, don't buy that shit. DLC that they usually release is almost never worth it, and you're now paying $80 for something that should have been included in the original game in the first place. My final verdict for Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag is a 5 out of 10. While this is a AAA game, and a ton of resources have been devoted to it, it looks great, it runs pretty well, but it's time we stop giving Ubisoft a free pass for regurgitating the same shit in all their games. We've been playing the same game since 2007. It's a little bit old at this point. It's really time for them to step up a bit and make something unique to rekindle our interest in the series. If there's supposed to be another 2 to 3 games in this series from what I've read, then I really don't know how we're going to get there without people losing interest at this rate. With the above score in mind, save your money and buy this game at a discount. Half price or below. No exceptions. The only way we'll ever get through to Ubisoft is if we speak with our wallets. That's the only thing they understand. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. This is Strikeit, checking out.
Of all the money that e'er I had, I spent it in good company. And all the harm that e'er I've done, alas, it was to none but me. And all I've done